And we are here today with Lyle Vassar, who owns a company called Best Pilots. And it's kind of a funny name for a company until you actually start seeing some of the figures that he's making. I mean, if you look around the RC hobby, you'll find that a lot of these pilots are very lifelike. They're very, very, very scale, and a lot of people want them. So Lyle, we sure appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk to us.
Oh, you bet, Ken. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so why Best Pilots?
Well, I've had a run in the marketing industry, and the company I worked for, it was kind of a hard name to market. It was confused with other names in the print industry. So I decided, you know, if I ever had my own company, I was going to pick a name that was going to be easy to market. So that's kind of how Best Pilots came around. I thought, well, that would be an easy one to throw out there. Another thing too, it helps keep me honest, because if I'm sculpting it and painting it, it's got to live up to that name of Best Pilots. So it keeps me on the straight and narrow and make sure that what I do delivers the best I can.
Okay, and what products do you have available? Where are you marketing at? Where's your goal at right now?
Right now, just trying to flesh out a good 1/5 scale selection of pilots. I've got one.
These are for like the top flight P-51, P-47, that size plane?
Exactly, yeah, in that size range. I go to a lot of air shows a year before I ever got into the pilot business, and that's what I always saw out on the flight line, and never saw a pilot figure that was just a perfect scale for those kind of kits. So that's kind of where I've ventured into, and that's where the pilots sell the best too as well. There's a lot of those guys out there flying, and you know, guys out there put in all the detail, rivets, weathering, all that to your planes, make the planes look real. I think the pilot needs to look as real as well.
Okay, so what got you started doing pilots? I mean, it's not like something that you wake up in the morning. I mean, as a model builder, you want to make a beautiful airplane, but what got you going to doing pilots?
I have a background in portrait painting. I also was a courtroom artist when I was in college. So
those guys that sit there, you see the pictures. Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah, I did a little bit of that. So the human face has always been intriguing to me. My dad was always the one that built the aircraft when I was younger, so I just hated to see that plane fly by without a pilot in it, so I would make one for him. And it was always intriguing to me that through doing the sketching and the painting, that the 3D modeling, sculpting it out of clay, it was just like sketching or drawing, except it was in 3 dimensions. And that was always intriguing to me, so it was an excuse to kind of exercise that little itch of what I like to do. Then a couple years ago, my dad and I, we completed a Zeroli B-25 bomber that was 1/8 scale. It was looking really cool, that plane is, and decided to put some pilots in it, and couldn't find any. So that's when I decided I'm gonna get out the sculpting tools and the clay and see what I can come up with. When I posted some of the build on RCU, guys were more interested in the pilot than they were the plane, and the plane looks good. But the pilots was what intrigued a lot of the customers out there.
Now, is this the same B-25 I've seen you at many events with? Because it's a pretty good looking plane in itself.
Yeah, it's been around now. This is its 7th season, so it's been flying around for quite a while, and the same pilots that were in it. So they asked me to make some molds. They would buy some, and I thought, on a lark, I was always interested in doing that anyway. So made some molds, and the first summer, I think I sold around 30 or so pilot figures. And I thought, hey, there's something here. So then I started expanding the line, and I try to add to the line about 2 pilots a year, and we've got quite a few of them now.
Now, I know this is a question, and if it's a sore subject, but I know some have asked you quarter scale World War II pilots. I mean,
yes.
You go quarter scale World War I, and you're in the 5th scale on the World War II. Why don't you have that quarter scale on the World War II line?
Well, first and foremost, it is a business, so I do kind of pay the mortgage, pay the bills with the pilot business that I have. So what you want to do is try to cast the biggest net to catch, you know, the most customers. And right now, I'm not so sure that World War II quarter scale is that big of a market, although it does seem to be growing. And man, there's nothing more I'd love to do than to do one of these pilot figures in a larger scale. You know, they get a lot more detail in it, all that. But I'm not so sure if the return is there. It takes about 100, 150 hours to sculpt make the molds for a pilot figure. So that's a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of expense too with the molds, which are around $500 or so a piece. So you want to get that back, and so you want to make sure you get go after the largest market there is.
So it's just going to be a matter for you to get them to do it. If it's going to be where you can make some money off of it, then you'll go into it.
And one of these days, it's just going to come about where I'm just going to do it because I hopefully we'll have the time to do so and explore that market. But right now, I want to get out the 1/5 scales, and then we'll see where we're at from there.
Okay, well, as we talk about that, let's kind of segue into it. Sculpting, how do you create these figures? I mean, where do you start with?
Start with a lump of clay. We got a little bit right here, but this is Super Sculpey or Sculpey. You can get it at Walmart, hobby stores, or whatever. Just regular clay. And the beautiful thing about this stuff is that once you have your piece sculpted, you can fire it in your oven or a heat source, and it becomes as hard as concrete, practically. So once a pilot is created, you've got it in a hardened form, and then you can make the molds from that, pull the molds off, and you still got the original. Whereas traditional artists, they use the softer clay that never gets fired, and when they pull the mold apart, the original's ruined. And so that's been a little bit of a plus for me.
As I sit here, I see that you've got some research material up here. You're doing a Japanese World War II pilot.
Yes, he is a 1/5 scale Japanese pilot. The way the whole thing starts is first determine who I'm going to do and see if I can get a good enough reference material.
Now that does, if you ask, kind of back up a little bit, all your pilots are real pilots. Pappy Boyington, Bob Sweeney, Luther, your World War I, and then you've got your Japanese pilot.
Yeah, I think that if you sculpt it after a real person, one, I love doing the portrait work and trying to get that likeness. That's a neat, just a little exercise for myself. But what that also does, it also imparts the character of the person into the piece. So you automatically, I think that's a side benefit, as opposed to like a bland mannequin looking face or something along those lines. So if I can get that character into the person, that's just an added bonus.
And you talk about character, and I think some people have said this. If you look at Pappy, he's kind of got almost like a disinterested look or a sneer on his face. I mean, was that intentional when you did this?
Yeah, it's just looking at the photography in the reference material is what's Pappy going to look like if he's just getting ready to fire up this plane. Some of the material I read, he may have been even a little bit hungover. Who knows? So he looked like, there he was hungover. But he looks like he's steely-eyed intent to go out and get the mission done. And I don't think you can argue it doesn't look like Pappy Boyington as well. So
well, it really does look lifelike, and once you get it painted up, it's pretty amazing. So now I kind of pulled you off topic. We're talking about your Japanese that you're developing. So tell us a little bit more about how you kind of develop your figure and how you get into it.
Okay. Luckily with the internet, I mean, the resource is just available. It would take, I don't know how long to find the books and the magazines to get in the old days to find a proper source. But with the internet now, we can get a hold of almost all the pictures that can be found of the new Japanese pilot, which is Saburo Sakai. And I think I'm saying that right, I'm not sure. So, but anyway, with the photographs, even some of them in later stages of his life, you're able to get the proper form that you need. And if I can get a side view and a front view, I'm good to get ready to go with the face if you get the profile. And anyway, so with my reference material, I started and through, I think I've got about 20 hours, 25 hours in him so far, and this is where we're at.
Now this is in the clay that you're working with,
yes,
right?
Yeah, this is the clay. If I drop this right now, it'd be kind of flat.
Well, let's handle it carefully then. Now, did you say how many hours you have at this point?
I think it's around 20, 25, roughly. You might notice that the goggles, those are shiny aluminum. That's made out of aluminum can and aluminum wire. Reason I do that is so, one, it can be kept symmetrical, so the clay doesn't smoosh, while you're working on other details. And that's just the hardest part to do in clay is a real rounded little tube-like shape and keep that from being dented or anything. So I do that part in aluminum, meld it into the clay, and then it can be fired and not melted later on. Works really well for me that way.
Okay, now I noticed as you showed me around your shop, you've got a couple, as they call, proprietary machines you've built.
Yeah.
for sculpting these. But, I mean, once you've got your sculpt, you cast these. How do you cast these out? And are they in resin?
We do. We use rotocast resin, and pour that in a mold, and essentially make them like they do hollow chocolate bunnies. So
Where it rotates around to fill it completely.
Rotocast around. It presents all sides of all 360 degrees of the mold to the resin, and about 7 to 8 minutes or so, pop out a new pilot, and it's ready to go. And they're hollow cast. They're really light. These weigh about, at most, I think it's around 5 ounces. So super light, won't be a weight penalty putting them in the airplane.
And which is really critical when you already have a 17, 18 pound warbird. You don't want to add another pound or two of a pilot in it.
Exactly. So lightness is good.